All right, everybody, welcome back to the number one television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Now, today I'm going to be reviewing Stephen R. Donaldson, A Dark and Hungry God Arises, Gap into Power. This is book number 3 in his Gap Cycle novels. I've got the other 4 here. Book number 1, Gap into Conflict, The Real Story, I reviewed about a year and a half or 2 years ago. Book number 2, Gap into Vision, Forbidden Knowledge, I also reviewed a while back. So if you'd rather watch those reviews before this one, just type in Stephen Donaldson Gap and my last name. I think the video reviews will show right up on your television screen if you do that. Now, book number 4 is Gap into Madness, Chaos and Order. And then book number 5 is Gap into Ruin, This Day All Gods Die. But we're going to be talking about book number 3 here. One of my favorite space opera science fiction novel or series of all time. If you ever watched any of my science fiction book rankings, you know this series comes in the top 10 or so, something like that. Anyway, so A Dark and Hungry God Arises, book number 3, came out in 1993. That's like some 30 years ago. I read it when it first came out when I was younger, and it's always just stuck in my mind as being a very, very, very... Okay, I'll just say this right up front. Of all the science fiction novels I've read, this is the darkest of all. I mean, this 5-book series, the darkest, the most grim darkest. So if you're like into grim dark fantasy and you want to know about something that's got a grim dark science fiction, man, this is it. If you like Game of Thrones, Joe Abercrombie, Mark Lawrence, grim dark, Stephen R. Baker, grim dark fantasy, and you want grim dark sci-fi, go no further than the Gap Cycle, because it is brutal, bloody, sometimes hard to watch things happen in these books. I mean, oh my gosh, you want to look away. Sometimes you want to vomit. Sometimes you want to just take a shower after a couple chapters. That's how dark it is. So, I mean, this is a book full of all bad people, kind of like Game of Thrones. And it's a space opera, almost the anti-Star Wars of space operas, even though it's got all the cool weaponry and gadgetry and characters that Star Wars has. But just imagine if everyone in Star Wars was like, Cersei Lannister and Joffrey Baratheon or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so Billinggate is an illegal shipyard. I mean, of course, things have happened in books 1 and 2 that lead to this start of this book. Billinggate is an illegal shipyard and haven for space pirates and other ne'er-do-wells, a real place of scum and villainy that, it makes Mos Eisley Station look like Sesame Street, to be quite honest. Billinggate is also the gateway to the alien realm of the Amneon, who have evil plans against humanity. So, our main character, UMCP police officer Morn Highland, has had some adventures in these first 2 books. OMG, has she had some bad things happen to her. She's been captive of about all the bad guys at one point or another. She is captive. Anyway, at this point in the book, she's captive of Nick Circuso, a space pirate, who initially everyone thought was a good guy, but turns out... Anyway, he is going to trade Morn Highland, this cop, over to the Amneon, the aliens that want to destroy humanity. And it's an act of betrayal and revenge and profiteering that has pushed the crew of his own spaceship into near mutiny. So, I mean, he's not a good guy. He's not a good leader. He's not doing good things. At the same time Nick is doing this, he's also kind of forced to look for this police officer's 16-year-old son, who was born not that long ago, but he's now 16 because the Amneon can force grow people. In other words, instead of taking 16 years to be 16, the Amneon have a way to just, you're 16. Oh, you're 6 months old? No, you're 16. And now this kid has to find his way. He's a character too. He's struggling. This kid is struggling to find his own identity in an unusual situation. He's got an unusual place in the galaxy. And then entered the most evil character of all, Angus Thermopylae, who is now, didn't start out this way in books 1 and 2, but, spoiler alert for those books. He's now half human, half robot. And he's the evil mortal enemy of, pretty much everybody else in the book. And he's teamed up with this guy, Milos Taverner. Then there's even more evil characters like Warden Dios, who's the director of the police force. And there's another character simply known as the Dragon. And this whole series is just a dark, hard, R-rated book full of spaceships, starships, aliens, cool weaponry, just plot-driven, counter-plot, treachery, betrayal, schemes that reveal deeper schemes, that all the characters are in schemes up to their eyeballs, but they all pretty much all just pawns in a bigger game played out by the Dragon and the Warden and Thermopylae. I mean, everybody, it is like literally Game of Thrones in outer space. It's dope. It's a dope book. Violent scenes of torture, scenes of, assault of the kind that no one wants to bear thinking of. It's just, if you like dark, this is it. I like dark. I don't have a problem with dark. I get it. I like it. It's real, And so I loved this series the first time I read it. I'm rereading it now, loving it again. Another just solid. This is a solid 10 out of 10 series all the way across. I can't remember what I rated books 1 and 2, but certainly book 3 is just non-stop, relentless tension all the time. So anyway, there we go for this book, number 3 in the Gap Cycle.